the Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show. We're continuing our series on team dynamics. I'm Stephen Zakach here with Tullio Siragusa.
Hey, everybody.
So in the past episodes, we've gone over negative and positive personas in team dynamics. We've covered a playbook for peak team performance. Now there's another member of the team that people are going to have to wrap their heads around, and that's AI. Just this week, as we record this, Google showed off an upcoming feature called AI Teammates. Agents that can answer questions on your emails, your meetings, and other data within that Google workspace, right? And just, Microsoft's going to have the equivalent at some point as well. They're already got that integrated. So OpenAI also showed off something which we're going to get our reaction to in a second. So when we talk about these team dynamics, we want to be on the leading edge and talk about AI as a teammate. So I don't know how many of you are knee-deep in AI development like I am, but I'm telling you, it's coming. It sounds like a joke with having AI as a teammate, but the latest tech that's dropped this week, AI is just becoming more and more lifelike and more engaging, more humanish. We still aren't, quite there yet, but it's becoming more and more trained on us. So to be more like us. I want to get a reaction to an AI video, but first, Tullio, do you use AI weekly, daily? How often do you use AI right now?
So I will argue that AI as a teammate is already here. The difference is it's not interacting in a meeting with us, right? It's kind of like we work with this teammate, but they stay in the background. They're like a little secret weapon in the background. I use AI regularly now. I have fully integrated into everything I do because it allows me to be more efficient, more accurate, and allows me to do a lot more in a shorter period of time. In fact, I wouldn't be able to effectively do what I do as a fractional executive, producing the equivalent of a full-time executive without AI. So if I do an analysis, or if I'm looking at research information, or trying to make some decision, or I need to look at market data, and I'm able to triangulate things that would have taken sometimes days, if not weeks, very quickly. I wouldn't say in seconds. There's a lot of prompting, a lot of work to get the outcome you want, but definitely within hours, I can get a lot done that would normally have taken a lot longer. And so it's just an effective tool. I have it even on my mobile phone, so I speak into it, and I'll say, how's the best way that I can say this? Or I want to organize my thoughts, and I might have a bunch of ideas that I want to organize into a message. So historically, I would have done like mind mapping for things like this to prepare how to communicate something really intricate and complicated in a simple way. But now it's like you just give it your thoughts. Here's what I want to convey. I want you to convey it in a very simple, empathetic way, and it captures it. And then I can work with that. So to me, I already have a teammate that I use daily, that I work with daily. I wish it was more interactive, in fact, because I've kind of embraced partnering with AI as a way to be more effective at what I do day in and day out.
Yeah, I think like early last year, I don't know, January, February, generative AI, it just kind of took off. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of had to retrain how they go about stuff and develop this new muscle that they hadn't quite used before to lean on AI for some things that they've, weren't possible before. So this is a big transition. And I don't know, everyone's heard about AI, this and that, and they're probably getting sick of it, but I'm just telling you, just wait. So remember when we were going from like a flip phone to the smartphone? That was a pretty big transition. That changed behaviors, in your life in so many different ways. Generative AI is kind of like that transition, but I think actually it'll probably end up being similar to that transition from the pre-internet to the internet, for those of us old enough to remember that. Just this massive change in everything. And people probably aren't aware that's what's coming. As we mentioned, OpenAI showed off AI interfacing in a video conference that I want to roll this clip. So we're going to play as just a silly meeting of what's better, cats or dogs, but pay attention to how AI is involved in a real-time conversation in a meeting, and then think about, where will we be 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Let's roll that.
I think cats are better because they're more affordable, they're more quiet, they're more independent, and they live longer.
Interesting points. Sounds like we've got a classic dogs versus cats debate here. I can see the appeal of both. Dogs are super loyal and great companions, but cats have their own charm with their independence and low maintenance lifestyle.
Who likes cats?
It sounds like Ola is more of a cat person.
And who
How
like
about the rest
dogs?
of you? Lillian mentioned she likes dogs. Anyone else here team dog?
I'm also a team dog. My name is Christine, and I think dogs are just incredible with kids. We've got a huge German Shepherd, and he's great with little toddlers. He lets them play all over them, and I think dogs are amazing.
That's great to hear, Christine. Dogs, especially breeds like German Shepherds, can be so gentle and protective with kids. It must be quite the sight seeing your little ones play with such a big dog.
Can you summarize this meeting for us?
Sure. So, in today's meeting, Lillian and Christine express their love for dogs, highlighting their loyalty, companionship, and how great they are with kids. On the other hand, Ola prefers cats for their independence, quietness, and longevity. It was a fun little debate on the classic dogs versus cats topic.
So that there's a lot of nuance going on in there too. Like,
Wow.
it's just like, okay, this is happening real time, right? So she even interrupted the AI at one point with a question, and it still got that answered. So it was like really fast processing of stuff going on here. And she talked about the German Shepherd, and then she just added a couple bits almost conversationally about German Shepherds and that kind of stuff. And then got into, the summary or whatever they asked of it. But that to me, it was like, okay, this is going to be out for public release in, just a few weeks. Where are we going to be?
Very natural too, because she was able to make a comment about that. Must be quite a sight to see a big dog with a little toddler. I mean, that's the kind of human reaction that someone would make, right?
Yeah, that nuance there got me a little bit. I'm like, oh, because it was just this extra little step of making some kind of observation and adding to the conversation that was like, wow, that's an interesting little nuance going on there. So what I'm thinking here, I mean, when I see this, is just imagine this person this AI as a person or a teammate in a way that's got your work meeting, you're all going on, and AI knows whatever its task is up to, or it's somehow involved in the conversation, or you want to ask a question about something. Hey, what was the data on, our sales last quarter compared to, year over year or whatever, and just having something, just give it to you right then and interact with it. There's just so much possibility here as a teammate.
Huge. I mean, this is not, there's really no precedence before this. I mean, we could borrow from the impact the internet had on everything, but this is so dramatically different because it's very personal, right? So every industry is going to be disrupted from this. Even the educational system. I now have the ability with something like a bot that could easily be turned into a very friendly avatar that is not only listening and giving feedback, but it's adapting to what I'm saying.
One of the examples they showed, Tullio, was there was like this, I think it was a tablet or Mac, and it was this sort of teenager with some not simple math. It was some more complicated math. And if you're a parent, you've always been there. We're like, I don't know. But it was like, hey, they asked the AI, can you teach this? Don't give the answer, but teach it. And so it was asking questions about the math problem. And so there's this interaction back and forth, and sometimes he'd get part of it wrong, and then it would train. So it was this very interactive tutor right there. So for sure, like you said, education, it's just going to
And
change.
talk about gamifying education. Imagine having the ability, if you're a young student, where the avatar could be like your favorite TikTok star or celebrity, and it's like an image, and that person's talking to you and showing you how to do an exercise, teaching you how to do an exercise at your pace. And you might say, I'm having a hard time with this. And then it's like it's adapting to your pace. So it personalizes the education. There's so many things that can be done with this. It could be people who love doing do-it-yourself type projects, right? Most of us will read something and we'll look at YouTube video to try to learn how to do something, whether it's like auto repair or even repairs around the house. And you can learn a lot from those YouTube videos. They're fantastic. But you're like pausing, rewinding, and you can't ask questions. It's only a one-way tutorial. But, with something like this, I could have an AI avatar that has access to massive amounts of information, including the manual for, say, a car, and can walk me through a change and educate me on how to do it. And then I can ask a question. I'm stuck here. This is not working. Oh, try this. Change the, pressure on your wrench or whatever. There's so many different things that you can accomplish in an interactive teammate scenario. It's like, and it's personal because you have that person at your fingertip. And in a team dynamic, you could be a leader that says, I really want to get my team to collaborate more. So I want you to participate in this meeting, see who's not participating as much, maybe encourage more of that, identify where there's opportunities. You can give it all kinds of requirements, and it could like engage the team and draw them out and have that kind of conversation. And also, sometimes you always have that person in the meeting that's like, okay, what are our next steps? They're more organized than the rest. And now AI could do it. So you can have consistent team meetings with consistent outcomes, and you can have it in a way that's a little bit more organized too. So much that can happen from this, which is a good thing and not a bad thing. But it's just mind-blowing. I didn't think this would happen until, 5 years from now. It looks like it's happening now.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
I mean, like right now, I will go with my phone in the house and occasionally, be like, take a picture of something and be like, so just the other day, I'm cleaning out something. I found like this audio visual equipment. I'm like, I have no idea what this is and would I even use it right now? I took a picture, type in Ask AI. I could have spoken to it, but it on the app told me exactly what it was, what it's for. And I'm like, oh yeah, that. And oh yeah, that's outdated. I don't need that anymore. So, into the e-waste recycling bin. But my sister, she's like, what is this thing that I found? And I'm put it in the AI and here's what it is. Here's how much it's valued. She's all, can you give me an eBay description? I'm all, yep, here it is.
I hadn't even thought of doing something like that. So many nuances.
So yeah, and that's still this clunky-ish input-output sort of process. Unlike, like you were saying, like imagine having that interactive tutor situation or something where it's, you're working on a project and it's watching you and it's giving you tips on how to do this or how to do that or the next step. Or like you said in education, like these avatars. This is a whole different thought, but like have Kermit the Frog teaching you interactively, your kindergartner, how to do this, that, and the other thing, and watching them learn and make mistakes and helping correct them. And how much more interesting would that be than, perhaps a teacher who's, got 30 kids and kind of can assign stuff, but is not able to be right there with every single student on every little moment of their learning, where now you're just inviting a more interesting, fun way to interact and learn. And there's just so many opportunities here where it's just going to be in our lives and you won't even realize how.
The truth of the matter, the only folks that should be concerned about it are not individuals, it's actually big companies. Because as an individual, this is an equalizer. The internet promised to democratize access to information, and it did. But this is next level. This equalizes your ability to get anything done. You're not limited by education. You're not limited by even your own skills, because you can have a teammate that can level you up, who has the expertise from some of the best talented folks in the world. You bring that to bear in your team environment. So if you've got a weak link on a project management, if you're a services company, now you've got a partner that can help that project manager level up. You've got a weak link in your accounting team, and you need to have someone who has a little more assistance to make sure that they're creating the right spreadsheets. Now they have a partner that can help them do that. So in essence, it creates opportunity for individuals who know how to use these tools to show up and be effective at their jobs. They're not necessarily being experts from the beginning. So it's going to change dramatically the opportunities for people, but also companies who some will have difficulty embracing this idea that I'm bringing in maybe not the traditional pedigree, but I have mastered how to use AI as a partner to get things done. And that should have some kind of value, right? Some kind of a certification, just as good as an education piece. That's where things will change, how we think about people that have mastered using AI, because those who know how to prompt it correctly and do it right are more valuable than the guys who learned in the books every detail, because that's kind of as old as it was when you learned it. With AI, you always have the latest and greatest, especially if you're an accountant. What are the latest IRS codes? Instantly accessible to you through this AI bot that's helping you. Whereas you might have to read volumes of information every year. So I think it's a huge opportunity for individuals to embrace it, not necessarily companies. Companies, yes, they will embrace it. Some will have a hard time with it. But as individuals, if you embrace it yourself and then you bring it to your team dynamics, it's gonna be a game changer, I think.
So this is interesting. So where I think it probably starts and is introduced in a lot of businesses, freeing up a lot of that repetitive work, for sure. I mean, that's probably where they're going to start with. So if you're in that kind of job position, you should be a little concerned, especially depending on how your company is run, because it's pretty rare to have these higher consciousness loving businesses out there that are going to, try and reconfigure your job role. A lot of them are just like, nope, we're replacing you, done. So if you're in that sort of repetitive type of job there, where you're, just doing the same kind of stuff over and over again, and that AI can just kind of observe and learn, there's going to be a lot of people there. But I think that's where most people think, okay, that kind of stuff, it's going to replace. But here's the thing. AI is now replacing human judgment. It's replacing human judgment and things, and that's huge. So nearly 40% of the U.S. jobs are in some sort of category where there's this human judgment involved. And people are going to say, yeah, there's always going to be human for this and that. No, there won't be. Like I know in the military, it was like, well, there's always going to be a human in the kill chain. And then they were like, well, no, the other guys now have something. So now we're going to have to be faster with it. So it's going to get, it's going to get messy at times. It's going to get real messy. But
that's why people have to embrace it as a tool instead of seeing it as a threat. Learn how to use it to make you the fastest, most efficient person at doing the job that you currently do. And as you do it, you might learn a few new things. It's like, I think we ought to do this differently. Or you start to develop new skills that are transferable. And that's the key thing. So, but if you're just kind of waiting to see what happens, that's a risk. Especially, like you said, if you're doing repetitive jobs, that's going to be automated with AI. So get really good at using it now, so you're faster than everybody else, and level yourself up, get promoted, move into other categories of jobs that can give you bigger opportunities or greater opportunity. That, because those repetitive things, be the one who figures out how to automate them. That's what I would encourage people to do. Instead of being threatened by it, just embrace it and get really good at using it.
In our business, so in marketing, we're definitely one of the first industries to embrace generative AI at a high level. So, we've worked on AI in various forms for a long time, but when this came along, you saw marketing was really one of the first to just percentage-wise, more and more marketers using this to 10x their output, 10x their precision, all those kind of things, right? So the money is pouring into AI at kind of a record level here. 29.1 billion was invested across 700 generative AI deals in 2023. That's an increase of 260% over the prior year. This is according to PitchBook. But let's look at a list of the types of companies that have been funded, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions in some cases, just this past week. So this is just a sample. I'm just going through just 1 week, and here's the types of companies in there. So first one here, it's accounting related, like you're talking about, Tullio. This one's got accounting. Then there's an analytics one. Then there's cash flow management. So again, something related financially there. Then dentistry, supply chain logistics, coding, which is another one of those areas that embraced AI pretty early because it could take over some of that work. Drone operation, so scary, especially as I mentioned, replacing human judgment. Analytics, healthcare payment solutions, communications and compliance, streamlining workflows for cancer centers, healthcare scheduling, healthcare diagnosis. So in that list, I think we see a lot of some of those finance related ones. There's about 40% of that list is healthcare in some kind of manner. So, and it's kind of like this every week with millions and millions just being poured into this. Ultimately, especially with that healthcare and things like that, this will be a good thing, I think, because there'll be bumps in the road for sure.
Yes.
But ultimately, I don't know if you watched like House, they're doing these diagnoses, right? And they're brainstorming, and having AI there with you diagnosing something in real time is just this other teammate that can come in there.
You can't humanly do the level of permutation that an AI system can do for you. I mean, thousands of different, you just can't humanly do it. You need thousands of analysts or researchers. So it's just, I'm actually the most excited about how healthcare can use it to really fail faster, right? To find the right solution. So,
so imagine that, like that voice that we just heard, and interacting with like doctors in real time on some surgery, like something's going sideways. That's going to be an interesting teammate to have processing in your head, as well as what, your natural processing of what's wrong, what just changed, and you're going through your checklist.
Yeah.
This is going through it super fast as well.
Can you imagine being in an operating room as a surgeon and the thing is listening and participating, and you're just talking what's going on and watching, and you're saying, and you're about to do a procedure, and the thing jumps in and said, well, there are 2 procedures that were done here, and this is what they did, and they had a more successful outcome. And suddenly you've studied this, but you don't remember everything in that moment. You're like, oh yeah, that's probably a better way to do it. And it could literally save a patient's life, make their outcome significantly better, because you're only as good as what you remember in that moment in these critical types of jobs. When you have something that's like accessing massive amounts of data and can give you real-time input, it's a game changer in a good way. I think AI can be used for a lot of good, and especially if it's ethically been programmed to put the human values first above everything else. I think most companies that will adopt that with those kind of ethics will do extraordinarily well, including individuals.
So yeah, like you mentioned, like that brainstorming. So House, on that TV show, they had these brainstorming sessions of what could be going wrong. What is it now? Okay, we failed at this. We failed at this other thing. Maybe it's one of these 5 things, and they're doing these just permutations over the course. And this is a very dysfunctional team too. So talk about some of our negative personas we've talked about already. This is a very dysfunctional team trying to get through this process,
egos,
and come up with his answers. So now you've got this teammate in there that won't be dysfunctional, will probably be challenging someone who maybe other people wouldn't have challenged at times, right? Because there's a lot of ego, like you said, involved, and someone who's also just, this is the boss. We're not going to challenge him. I think he might be making a mistake here, but AI would probably just won't care, right? At some point, it's like, no, this is the what about this, and they'll have to process that.
That's actually probably one of the best ways to give the teammates a voice of reason, where you have potentially the stubborn or even the borderline megalomaniac boss who just won't listen, wants you to agree with them. And, I'd be interested to see how they will react when an AI would say, that's probably not the best way to go about this, and here's why, and gives you all the data points as to why. I'd be curious to see how they would react to that. Those individuals who are so stubborn, like, just shut it off. You don't know what you're talking about, right? I mean, and then somehow when you override that recommendation, it gets recorded, so it goes to the board, and then it can become aware of what you're doing. Because right now they have no way of knowing it, and usually you have closed doors to the board for the rest of the organization. So it could also be a great governance tool to for public boards to make sure that the leadership team's not going off the rails.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways and nuances in there. And you talked about this. When you think about it, it is humbling. It can be humbling in a way, right? And good leadership, you are going to be humble. You're not going to be arrogant, and you're going to be humble at whatever task you're doing. You're going to be open to ideas. And if you're arrogant, if you're up in yourself and suddenly it's giving you some feedback that, maybe someone else had the idea too, it'll humble you, and that could be a painful process. And I can't even imagine the dynamics here, like you said, of now, how does the conversation start to change in those brainstorming sessions or those meetings when you've got AI in the mix, with bringing in some expertise. So we all aren't surgeons doing all this stuff, but maybe even like marketers, for instance, we're working on our tool, AI CMO. You can go see it at aicmo.io. So this is Artificial Intelligence Chief Marketing Officer. You can get on the wait list there. But what part of that tool is doing is just this very sophisticated brainstorming work in there on a marketing campaign. So a lot of times you're looking for creative ideas. And so what it's doing is learn from really good, creative, emotionally connecting ideas. You give it some input, and it comes out with some bunch of different ideas related to that. And then what it'll also do is leverage expert tactics to help you come up and execute with that creative or that campaign you want to build. So it's bringing in this brainstorming that's very creative. It's bringing in all these different levels of expertise in there. And so now you've gone from, instead of trying to get to A to Z in like a week, you can get to maybe like A to X. It can get you pretty far down the line within just minutes. And that's just huge for anyone as far as having that on your team, right? As far as this being your
with
teammate.
an empathetic bend to it, that's the key thing. I mean, you'd have to, as you know, I've been an advisor to the design thinking program at the University of California, which is all about infusing empathy and everything. But and we've done a lot of different iterations and prototypes and things like that. It's a lot of effort to come to how to really connect with people in a way that's not just about fulfilling the need for a transaction. It's about fulfilling the need for an experience, for something that's memorable. It's a lot of work, a lot of effort, multiple steps to get to that, long cycle. And when in the past few shows, we were using AI CMO to come up with some ideas for, that antique shop or the pre-owned or reused shop. I was blown away by some of this. I mean, in minutes, it came up with stuff that would have taken probably weeks and a lot of people to creatively come up with. So that's the beautiful thing about AI CMO. It's not just going to help you come up with campaigns faster and more efficiently, but it's this bent of making it human and empathetic, which lands better emotionally on people, because that's what we all want, is great experiences, not just a product. that's a game changer, in my opinion. That's something that's unique in how sort of crack the code on how to effectively do that. So because ultimately that's within an AI world, people are afraid that we're going to lose the feeling of being human. And it could happen. It could, if you don't put focus on infusing the human elements of it, because it could all just be very logical and it will feel very clinical. Well, this is the logical thing to do, like a robot, right? But there's more to it. That's like that chat that said, oh, it must be so cute to have a big dog and a little baby. Like, it made a human-like comment instead of like, well, looks like 5 people said dogs are better and 3 people said cats are better. Well, dogs win. Okay, logically you can get to that, but to make a human-like comment about how cute that might look, that's different. Now the people that are participating don't feel like they got some bot who's wasting their time. They feel like they've got another human being with an opinion participating, who also speaks softly and eloquently. There's so many elements to it. So I feel as though with the AI CMO, we've kind of imbued like the soft, eloquent, but really effective, masterful, like creative genius, all built into one.
Yeah. So if you're interested, go to aicmo.io, check it out. Tullio, something you said there sparked this idea in my head, is that AI is this reflection of us as humans. It's where it's getting all this information from, how it's reacting, and us as humans are very complicated, right? So anything bad you can think of, AI may be a reflection of that. Anything good you can think of, AI may be a reflection of that at some point. People will use it in those ways. So yeah, what we really want to do is lean into the good side of it, the higher consciousness side of it, and really try and help companies express that and live by that. And because the world is going to be changing fast here, and we want that humanity to be reflected in its best and kindest possible way with AI.
So true. I mean, the internet sped up how things change so much. This is going to be warp speed in comparison. So might as well make it good. Let it make a change for the good. Otherwise, it'll just warp speed the mess that we're in. So warp speed for good is the ideal way to go about it.
Exactly. And it's like we're kind of on the edge there of which way that could go. I feel like it's like we're on this tipping point in consciousness and we aren't quite there yet. To this next level. So it's a little sketchy on how it'll play out. But so let's talk about a little bit about some of these other tools that we're currently maybe using or that other people might be familiar with AI as kind of a teammate. And so one of them I think is that meeting facilitation, right? And in our meetings, I see Tullio's note taker pop in there and said, Tullio, tell me how you use like some AI for meeting prep and.
So I don't have any attachment to Read AI, but it's just one I use. But I use Read AI, and it literally takes notes about the meeting and gives feedback on the engagement level of the team, who participated, what was said. It looks for some threads and then makes a recommendation. This looks like the items that need follow up. And then it's integrated into Slack. So then I get an update about things that need to be done and I can check them off, right? And each individual gets this. And then you get meeting notes before the next meeting. It's like if you have a recurring meeting, you get a reminder of what you talked about the last meeting and the action items and the things that were pending. So if you got a million things going on, sometimes you got to look at your notes. You can literally just get it right on the spot. It anticipates what you might need. And you're like, oh yeah, that looks like something we didn't get to do. So let's talk about that. So it technically is operating as a teammate. It's just not interactive. It listens and it gives feedback afterwards. But there's no reason why at some point they can't activate it to be, interactive, where you could say, you know what, these are the critical things we want to get done. And did we miss anything? And it'll talk back and say, yeah, well, you guys talked about this early in the meeting. No action items have been created on that. Okay, what do you suggest we create as an action item for that? And it gives you feedback. Now you have like a teammate that's assisting you, but currently most of those systems are reactive. So they'll take notes, they'll give you feedback, and it helps you organize yourself. But I look forward to them being proactive, where I can engage with them and we can have them be part of the conversation so that they get even better at recommending the follow-up steps and reminding you of the follow-up steps and maybe even coordinating those activities that multiple people need to get done. It's just going to make things faster and easier without having to remember everything or write everything down or come up with plans for everything down. AI will facilitate that. You'll still need software and tools to manage all this stuff, but the AI will integrate into them so it facilitates making it easier. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
So there was a study that reviewed this very large company, and it found that it was spending hundreds of thousands of hours on meeting prep, like annually. And each week to the build up to these executive committee meetings, they realized they had 150 pre-meeting meetings for this. So think about just all that work on the meeting prep and that kind of stuff and how AI can kind of slip in here and help with this process too, instead of spending, that's hundreds of thousands of man hours. Now you're suddenly getting more and more productive because you've got this teammate that's in the mix there.
Absolutely. That is the element that I hated the most in a startup environment. How many pitch decks and preparation meetings you have to do for investors and this and the board. You just spend most of your time preparing to present something. It's like, I want to spend my time building the business, not preparing to present about it. And AI is going to make that so much easier. Like it'll prepare it for you. If especially imagine you have one that participates in all your meetings, is attached to all your emails, all your communication, it tracks all that, and it just becomes a voice of reason. It's like, okay, I got a meeting coming up with the board. All the stuff we've been talking about for the past quarter. What are the key things that we want to discuss? And it'll just give you a presentation and create it. Could you imagine? It's like, it sounds crazy, but that's going to happen. And then you look at it and you can fine tune it and tweak it and such, but it'll save you literally a week of time that an entire team is hustling around to go do a good job to present to the board when they should be focusing their energy on building the company. I'm not surprised how much time is wasted in these meetings. AI is going to eliminate that, and that's a good thing. I can't wait for that to happen because it's not the fun part of the business doing all this prep.
Yeah, and think about like Microsoft, Microsoft Teams. This is all going to be sort of just this built in where it's going to have access to some of your data and your meetings and your emails if you wanted it to. And it's going to have, and same with Google Workspace, right? These big sort of walled gardens of their own ecosystems in there. They're going to make these really good assistants, and they're going to be able to do stuff like, yeah, I need a PowerPoint on this, or I need slides for this upcoming board meeting. Can you go through the last 5 emails with this and the 2 meetings that we did and compile? At least, like I said, get you from maybe not A to Z, but like A to X or A to Y.
Even half would be, even 50% of it is better than nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just get you that far along. It just keeps that momentum going. So it's going to be this huge tool, but it's also, like you said, when you get to that interactive stage, it's actually just going to be like a teammate in there.
People have lost their jobs not being prepared for a board meeting. It has happened. Key executives who just didn't show up prepared. Why? Because they were busy actually running the business and didn't have enough time prepping for that board meeting. It wasn't that they didn't know the information. It just wasn't readily available in a presentable fashion because they didn't have enough time. So what happens is you invest all your time because you're trying to protect yourself from getting fired by the board. Doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. So you're being judged on your ability to prepare a presentation, which is awful, right? But that's what's happening. So to have this where it can facilitate that, it's not only going to benefit the business because now you're focusing your energy on things that actually produce results instead of just stroking the ego of the board with a great presentation, but you still can do both. And that's the key. And ultimately, maybe it will even eliminate the need to have these meetings because the board might have visibility into it all and can query the system themselves to see what's going on. And it pops up a nice presentation to give them an instant on the moment what's going on with the business, which will create even more transparency. And I think more transparency is good for everybody. So it'll eliminate all this power. Everybody will have access to it. Anybody can see it. It'll democratize information. And it's a good thing. And maybe that'll force a little bit more empathy in the organization because once that sort of model becomes more of a shared authority model, there's no need for bosses and hierarchy and all that stuff, because they're all working as a team. And you have this tool that keeps it together and keeps it together for the same purpose. I think it's going to be really good for businesses and for people to adopt that. When is that coming? I don't know. Probably in the next couple of years. The way things are moving, it might be in the next couple of months. But so if you're an individual or a business that's kind of like shying away, I don't know how we use AI, you got to dive in with both feet, because you'll find yourself behind otherwise. There's no stopping it. You got to dive in both feet and figure out how to make it work for your business, because otherwise you'll hold yourself back. And especially for marketing purposes, you need a way to connect with people in a different way, in a genuine human way, because as many companies adopt this, they might also lose some of that human element initially as they learn how to use it better. So, having platforms that have that built in, that continue to maintain the human element to how you position yourself, is key. Which is why, definitely check out AICMO.io and get on the waiting list for that.
Tullio, I think when you were mentioning that, I think so we went over all those positive personas, and AI is going to reflect so many of those. And you think about all the negative personas, and no one's going to want any of that. So AI is not going to be doing that. But some of those negative personas are going to come up in this fight with AI to hold their power, right? Because you're talking about democratizing or being transparent. There's going to be some people clutching on to certain things to hold their power in their part of their organization. And I can already see that being just this painful battle. And companies that, with a hierarchy kind of management, that command and control kind of thing,
they're going to struggle.
Those are the ones that are probably going to be most hurt as far as if they don't adapt, right?
The thing, though, the difference this time is their competitors who adopt AI will leapfrog them so quickly that their boards will be like, what the heck are they doing different? And it'll be very apparent that they've adopted AI, right? And these guys are like, oh, hey, AI, I don't want, it's not good, right? So eventually some of that kind of happens without being exposed to that's happening. That's going to get exposed. So it's a good thing, right? It's going to be terrible for those individuals who thrive in that command and control structure, because they're going to have a really hard time. It's going to be a wake-up call for them, because their competitors are going to leapfrog them, and their cultures are going to be different, because that's the only way it's going to work. You have to adapt a more collaborative culture for this to work. And it's going to change businesses for the good. So for everybody involved, it's going to be good for them. But we'll see how it plays out for some of these companies, and whether they will adapt or die. Some of them will die, unfortunately. And it won't be because of the AI. It'll be because their stubbornness for not wanting to adopt AI. There's a difference. AI will kill those businesses because they're not using it, not because they're using it.
So we talked about, thinking about this as the shift from pre-internet to internet. So you could think of those companies like Blockbuster shift to Netflix. So it's just like, if you're not rolling with the technological advances, someone else will. And, they'll drink your milkshake in the process. And, who knows where you'll be left. So I think for most progressive leaders right now, I think a lot of them are concerned with AI. Like, okay, how is this going to impact my industry? How could this impact my business? Where are our weak spots with this? And if you're not doing that right now, that's kind of a dangerous position to be in, is if you're not evaluating everything you're doing and looking at where the technology is going. If you're just, hey, it's not going to change that fast. We're just showed this video where it's like this almost human type thing. And this is like the early stages of this. This is so early. This is like 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years, 10 years. That time is going to be here in a flash. And the way AI is developing is much faster than just like typically, Silicon Valley has developed things. It's going just much faster pace. than ever before.
Way faster. So if you're watching this and you're on the fence, here's what I would encourage you. A/B test it. Get a few teams that do things the traditional way, and get a few other teams that are completely adopting generative AI in the day-to-day work. And just do it for a quarter. And then see the performance of each team and who's outperforming the other. And I guarantee you the folks using generative AI will significantly outperform the other team in effectiveness and speed and even innovation, because they'll have more time to do innovation. And then you'll realize, oh, okay, prove it to yourself. It's just inevitable that once you do that test, you'll see just how more effective the teams will be using AI.
So I think where most people might be impacted by the AI right now is there's a lot of like existing tools. So like, you're using Salesforce or you're using some project management tool. And a lot of these tools are sort of adding some sort of AI part to it, to those tools. But I think we're still just a couple iterations away, because these are sort of simple tools, but they're going to start doing more and more complex things where they can, instead of just doing 1+1 type of things, they're going to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's just going to keep evolving that way to where they get more and more sophisticated. So if you're thinking about like anything you're doing right now with your project tools, that kind of stuff, anything you're doing with we just saw with Hollywood, visual content creation, that kind of stuff is going through this. Anything with music creation starting to feel it too, with like these spoofs of AI stuff. A lot of this creative kind of work, that's one of the first areas where we're seeing this. But when we get into this more sophisticated stuff where it's like, hey, I want you to do some prototyping on something. I want you to take all this business intelligence stuff and not just give me data on it, but actually do some things based on that data and produce visual things, produce content, produce those ad copy stuff like we're doing. When you're getting into stages of this where you've now got layered upon layer, different levels of sophistication in here, people are going to feel that. I think they're going to feel that really quickly, and it's just going to pick up speed like that.
Absolutely. So
we're going to start rolling out some conversations with guests to give you more content and more perspectives. We've got some good ones ahead, including some related to the teamwork theme we've just talked about here in the past few episodes. So you might see some different shows coming up and some new co-hosts in the mix as well for these conversations. We're on a quest to help you build a more authentic, more loving business, and there are a lot of different ways to go about this. AI will just be one of the many tools at your disposal. So stay tuned as we dive in on the next Bliss Business Podcast.